All right, everybody, welcome back to the #1 television program in the history of the entire universe. I am Brian Lee Durfee, author of The Forgetting Moon, The Blackest Heart, and The Lonesome Crown, all three books published by Simon & Schuster's Saga Press. Today, we are going to be reviewing Lie Down with Lions by Ken Follett. Now, keep in mind, Ken Follett is one of my top 5 favorite authors in the world ever. One of the most influential writers on my own writing. I do have, we'll pan through the library here, I do have every single Ken Follett book right there on that shelf. So I love this guy, and I will say 90% of what he writes is dope. It is just magnificent. I just thought this novel was average. It's just average to me. Now, I did reread it when it, in the 90s, probably the early 90s. I mean, it came out in 1986, and I was a big Ken Follett fan, and I didn't get around to reading this one until about the mid-90s, so about 10 years after it came out. I only read it once, didn't make much of an impression on me like the other books. So I thought, the reread, let's see if I enjoy it even more. And I enjoyed it about the same as when I first read it, which was average. So there is a cover. Let's talk about the cover first, because you know I love graphic design and cover illustration. I think this one's pretty snazzy. I don't see anything wrong with it. It's got a delightful picture of the author there on the back. There is some maps on the inside of, the places we will be adventuring to, which are mostly kind of Paris and Afghanistan. Well, mostly Afghanistan, I would say. So one of the things that caught my eye as I was reading all of these blurbs from other authors, all the praise from all the book review sites, this one review caught my attention because it was just bizarre. Okay, so the book review says, a gripping thriller and love story. Follett builds the tension until it is as taut as a cable across the Khyber Pass. There is an incredible sex scene. Why would they put that in there? There is one incredible sex scene and a desperate trek across ice-covered mountains, an exotic setting, a strong, courageous heroine, a strong, courageous hero, good guys, bad guys, and a supporting cast of thousands. A roaring good read, along with one incredible sex scene. That's just a weird thing to put in a book recommendation. However, I will say, I don't know how incredible the sex scene was. I read it. I can't judge sex scenes for their incredibleness. I will say that this is Ken Follett's most sexual novel. There's one incredible sex scene plus a myriad of others. And some of it's just weird and out of date. Parts of it are bizarro. But, that's the 1980s. Literature and TV shows and movies, and so it just tracks for the time. So, I'm actually kind of delighted that whoever read that review put that in there, because I was like waiting for this incredible sex scene to happen, and by God, there were more than I was expecting. And this book, one of the reasons it kind of is a little bit lower on my enjoyment list from all the other Ken Follett novels is about a love triangle for the most part. It's more about the drama and soap opera-ness of this love triangle rather than the adventure and the spycraft. But there's eventual secrets between the characters and betrayals between the characters, which are kind of semi-interesting. And it is set against a harsh and exotic Cold War setting from the 80s, dealing with political stuff from the 80s. So that was interesting. I wish there was just more of that. I mean, it's not as taut and tightly plotted as, say, The Eye of the Needle or The Key to Rebecca or his other thrillers. What is this about? Jane is our main character, a woman in the middle of a love triangle, like I said. She's a nurse, a midwife kind of thing. She's living in Paris when we first meet her. She's got one suitor named Ellis, who's an American spy. Is he playing her? Is he a terrorist? These are the questions. What is his motives? And then Jean-Pierre is the Frenchman. A spy or not? A terrorist maybe himself. Is he playing her or not? It's kind of what's going on. But they all have secrets, and who will expose whose secrets first? It's kind of the tension here. They end up going from Paris to Afghanistan. Of course, there's a war in Afghanistan. Russia is trying to take over Afghanistan. If you remember that in the early 80s, Afghanistan is very third world, very grim, very bleak. It's a very alien place. And it's a brutal war. And the Afghans are hardened warriors. And there's a lot of discussion, not only love triangle discussion between the characters, but there's a lot of discussion between socialism, communism, versus capitalism, capitalism versus socialism, capitalism versus communism, communism versus socialism. You know, because the Russians are communists and they're coming in to this Afghan, and the Americans are capitalists. They want to protect their interests, and usually the Americans just did it, but it's all spy stuff. It's just spy stuff. Is the Frenchman a spy? Is the Englishman a spy? Is the American a spy? Is the girl a spy? Who's the spy? What's going on? And they're all in love. And there are some, according to one reviewer in here, some spectacular sex scenes. 80s style. I was just ho-humming my way through this, which, you know, maybe the first time I read it, I wasn't in the mood to read about Afghanistan. And maybe the second time I read it, I just was not in the mood either. So I'm giving this about a 6 out of 10. Probably about a 5 out of 10 in reality, but since Ken Follett is such a magnificent writer and all of his other books have entertained me so much, he's been such an inspiration in my life, I'm going to bump the average 5 up to a 6, just out of respect. Because everything else I think I've reviewed of his has gotten like a 9 or 10, mostly 10s. But Lie Down with Lions, just not my jam. And so that's the review.